will now give the floor to the honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Arising from a point of privilege that we raised just recently, it is incumbent upon us to respond to the government's intervention on this point. As you'll remember, Mr. Speaker, in the table, that the point of privilege had directly to do with the access to information that the opposition and, in fact, all members of Parliament require for the vote that is coming quite shortly with respect to Bill C-38. The point of privilege that was raised, Mr. Speaker, is a significant one because it talks about the central role of members of Parliament from all sides, and in particular the role of the opposition to hold the government to account. We looked very carefully to the House Leader's response from the government, and perhaps he was ill-prepared or ill-informed, but his points bear no merit to the case that we presented, and we wanted to ensure that you understood the case as put forward by Canada's official opposition. In particular, the government House Leader raised the issue of timing. As you know, points of privilege have to be brought at the earliest possible moment. The fact is that since the budget has been introduced, we have sought through every available means that we have at our disposal, questions on the order paper, in question period, at committee, through the Parliamentary Budget Officer, to find out what the implications are of this particular piece of legislation. In particular, the cuts to services, the cuts to employment that Canadians will be facing. That information exists, as you know, in our deposition of just yesterday. The government has refused to offer that information for what we believe are, well, bordering on bogus terms that came from the Privy Council's office directly, who works obviously hand in hand with the Prime Minister. It is unlawful for the Privy Council office to refuse this information from parliamentarians and from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. The timeliness of this was required that as we waited for the government to provide the information that they were legally obligated to do, it was only at their final refusal on letters dated April 12th and then confirmed on May 9th that we knew that we had a point of privilege in front of us. We've demanded and continue to demand that the government release this information so that we don't have members of Parliament voting blind on a piece of legislation. This, again, is incumbent upon all members of Parliament to be informed before they vote. The fact that Conservatives seem to have no problem voting blind is a concern to me, but not our problem. Our concern in the opposition is that we have everything available to us before we vote. The third point, and this is an important one, is that in the intervention from the Privy Council office, the Prime Minister's chief bureaucrat, it is illegal to break Section 79.31 of the Parliament of Canada Act, which is to hold known information from parliamentarians. In this case, holding it directly from requests from members of Parliament and also through the Officer of Parliament and the Parliamentary Budget Officer. We've been demanding this information for quite some time. And the last point is that the government House Leader made some response that we needed to cite any particular section or provision of the bill, but he knows better than this, and as you know and I, Speaker, that the point of privilege is intervention on the rights of all members of Parliament to perform our duties. The particular example here with Bill C-38, the Trojan Horse Bill, is one more example. But privilege applies in the individual or the collective when members of Parliament are unable to perform our functions on behalf of Canadians while government knowingly withholds information that is pertinent to the vote that we are about to take. This is significant. You know it is, and Speaker Milliken, in one of his last rulings before leaving this place, also recognized the importance of that fact. In that particular case, it had to do with Afghan detainees. In this case, it has to deal with the budget. But the consistency of withholding information is the same. And this is problematic, not just for the particular government in place now, but for the function of Parliament and for the sanctimony that which we hold this place. In order to do our jobs for those that we represent every day, we must have the information that exists. The information exists. It has existed for some weeks. The government has refused on all stages and every opportunity we've given them to respond in an honest and forthright way. The second act these folks moved in government was the Accountability Act. This breaks their own act, but more importantly, it breaks the right and respect that we have for this place and the privilege that members of Parliament have to seek the truth, to understand the information available to us so that we can vote with a clear conscience. That is a principle of Parliament. That is one that we will consistently hold. I seek to you now, as you will make your ruling in some hours to come, that this is a breach of privilege in the individual and the collective case. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.